My question is actually also for Quentin. I've read about your very competitive but friendly relationship with Paul Thomas Anderson. And I was wondering if you are motivated to make a new movie when he does, and also if you guys, if and how you guys influence each other on your styles.
Well, thankfully, thankfully our trajectory is every other year. All right, we've never had a movie come out, well, except for '97. He came out with Boogie Nights, and I came out with Jackie Brown. But luckily, it is a situation where, as I'm getting ready to do, write the next thing is when his new thing comes out, and Versa Visa. He's writing this thing, and then Inglourious Bastards came out. But it's kind of our position to just keep raising the bar on each other. I remember I met Brian De Palma early in my career. It was a dream meeting because he was always my favorite of the movie brands. He was a real, true hero. And I remember talking to him at this in his office, and he said, he goes, yeah, because he remembers he was making Scarface, and he was feeling really good about it. He was feeling really good about Scarface. No, it's Blowout. Sorry, it's Blowout. Okay, he was doing Blowout, and he was feeling really great about it. I think this is my best work. This is the one. And I actually agree, that is his best work. All right, but he was like, this is the one, this is the one. And then he goes to the theater to see Raging Bull. And sitting there in the theater, and that opening credit shot, with the classical music, and then just De Niro just bouncing on the left side of the frame, and he was like, fuck. There's always Scorsese. No matter how good you think you are, there's always fucking Scorsese.
Catherine and I are going to coordinate better next time.
Pete, I was wondering, I always imagine directors really engaged with their actors, and I just wondered if you could describe a little bit more about how you direct animation. Are you in the booth every minute when that person is working, or could you just explain a little bit more about that?
Specifically with voice actors?
Yes, yeah, I'm just imagining directing animation between what you see and are there changes in the drawings and because of what you saw in the booth, and it just seems like a very difficult process, and I just want to hear more about it.
It's tricky, yeah. I mean, in our case, we record the voices before we do any of the animation. And so the actors are standing in a room, a gray room, with nothing but the microphone, the script, and me. And so my job primarily is to explain to them, okay, here you're yelling across a massive auditorium, or whatever the scene is. And then we work line by line. Most of the time it's 7 or 8 takes, sometimes 30, whatever it takes, to get exactly what it is that I'm after. The other thing that's really odd, just given our process, is that very seldomly are there more than one actor in the room. So all the discussions or dialogue or arguments between, say, Woody and Buzz, or in our case, Carl Fredricksen and the kid, those were recorded on separate days in separate cities, and it's all artificial. So I just have to have in my head, okay, I know what take I'm using from Asner, and this is what I'm after with Jordan the kid, and I think it'll work. And
I was in heaven. It was so great. But specifically writing for animation, and it's so similar to puppets. Writing for that type of animation. Are you thinking like a director? I know everyone's laughing. Are you thinking like a director, or are you thinking like a writer? Where's that crossover happen? And it seems like with animation you have this opportunity to really let your imagination be wild. And so I just wanted to see if you could talk more about that.
I guess I'm thinking visually. What am I going to get on the screen? How do I communicate it? And if I can do it without a line of dialogue, then I will get rid of the dialogue. It's all about the imagery and the action, and that's what's interesting. And you're right. There are some things that probably, if you tried to make up in live action, I think you would have a difficult time getting the audience to believe that a house could actually lift off with the balloons. And we have sort of some leeway because of the design, because of the world that we're creating. But that in itself can be a challenge too, because it doesn't exist out there in the real world, and so you have to kind of adjust your brain a little to fit where the idea is going. But it's mainly a visual thing.
Can I say something? There's something that I was thinking about a lot when I saw about being a writer and coming up with stuff. That on one hand, I was like, well, maybe I'd like to do an animated film for the simple fact of just being able to let my imagination go and write whatever I came up with and not having to qualify it in any kind of way. But then, the minute I said that, I was also like, damn it. It also seemed stymieing too, about the idea, well, if you can do anything, what the hell do you do? It actually made me realize, not that I couldn't do it, but what made me realize is, oh, I've actually been comfortable with my limitations. The idea to throw them all away, actually like, oh, well now what's worth that? What's if you can do anything, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, that's really, oh, sorry.
But you end up creating these kind of parameters for yourself, and I think the audience needs that too. If you do anything, while guns a-blazing, then there's no real rules and there's no consistency for people to believe, at least what we're after. It's this sense of investment and belief in these characters that they're real. So, like on Up, when we had the floating house, we realized we needed to set that up in very subtle ways so that, okay, people, this is a world, see, he's leaning on this balloon cart, and the balloon cart starts going up, which is preposterous in itself. But this is kind of a little subtle tickle for the house, you know what I mean? You have to kind of create this consistency.
I think it's a really interesting area, because on Avatar for the first time I was doing a lot of animation, and I'd done live action before that. And what you find is that, that Debo song where they say freedom of choice is what you've got and freedom from choice is what you want.
Yeah.
You want freedom from choice, because as a director you pick a location, and then that location defines where you put the camera. You have to have something to hang your hat on in the real world, and in the animation world, the virtual world, you have nothing. You have an infinity of choices, and you have to start making choices right from day one, or you'll be trapped by an infinity of possibility at every turn. It's not a luxury as people imagine it to be. It's actually quite, I don't want to say paralyzing, but it becomes burdensome. So you have to make these choices as early and often as possible. And that was the big shocking discovery for me about working in that virtual world.
And Hypnandra Geet said,
She's called a Gita.
born of restraint and dies of freedom.
Let's say it one more time.
Art is born of restraint and dies of freedom. So I often hang on to those words when I'm looking at a really, really modest budget. It's like I've got a lot of restraint here. This is good.